You're watching a special edition of the Cultural Connections podcast, the Georgia Senate Runoff 2020 election special. Coming up, we'll have the latest information on this historic election. This is the Cultural Connections podcast, Georgia Senate Runoff Special Edition.
Well, perhaps Senator Perdue would have been able to respond properly to the COVID-19 pandemic.
But the most insidious thing that Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden are trying to perpetrate.
Are you ready to show America that Georgia's a red state?
And so vote Georgia like your life depends on it.
And good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Ives, and this is part 2 of our doubleheader of the Cultural Connections podcast. My name is Brian Ives, and we are coming on here live with the Georgia Senate Runoff Election Special. We hope you had a chance to tune in within our last hour to our amazing guest, Chris Fussner, CEO and founder of the Trans Tech Company, along with an incredible story that he shared with us. If you haven't had a chance to watch that yet or listen to it, feel free to go over either to any of our listening platforms, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, or watch it or listen to it on New TV, which is in Newton, Massachusetts, or view it on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. We want to remind our viewers that with this particular special that we're doing, we are coming to you live here. Hold on. I am trying to make sure that we are live here on Instagram, and I don't know that my live, so bear with me for just a moment, folks. Okay, now we are live here too on, sorry about that. So for everyone here, welcome to the Cultural Connections Georgia Senate Runoff 2020 election update. My name is Brian Ives, and I am the producer and host of the Cultural Connections podcast. For those of you who joined us within the last hour, thank you for joining us, and thank you for rejoining us if you're joining us again. We are coming on here live for a second hour now to bring you live election coverage of the Georgia Senate runoff races. If you tuned in during our last hour, you had the chance to hear an amazing story by our guest, Chris Fussner, who is the CEO and founder of Trans Technology, which is based out of Singapore. And we also heard all about his story and what led to his success. And it's a great story. So if you haven't had the chance, go listen to it. It's available on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and it will soon be available for your viewing pleasure on Instagram, as well as on listening platforms, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and New TV in Newton, Massachusetts. So feel free to go and check that out too. Now, we are obviously again coming on here live for our second hour, and our second hour live is live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, and will only be live to those platforms, and those videos will remain up on those platforms following the live video, but it will not be distributed to our listening platform since this is a special. So without further ado, we want to jump right into the election coverage of what's going on so far. And for those obviously not paying close enough attention, I'm going to jump right into our graphics here right now that basically give us the idea here. So we're talking about the Georgia Senate runoff races. There's 2 Senate races in Georgia that will basically talk about control of the Senate. The first here is the first race here that we're watching very closely is the incumbent Republican David Perdue, who is being challenged by Democrat Jon Ossoff. That is the first race that we're watching right now, and that we're watching as numbers come in. And I'm going to show you some different data that we're analyzing too. We may be coming back on a couple of times throughout the night. So, and it may not be on all of these platforms. It may just be Instagram like you're seeing right now. So do keep that in mind. Now, the second race here that we're watching is the race with incumbent Republican Kelly Loeffler, who is being challenged by Reverend Raphael Warnock. And right now, from the early results that we are seeing, and I'll jump into this right now, is that both Democrats are leading early right now. Again, it's too early to call these races, but the early indications currently show both Democrats in the lead. Now, what I'm going to do here on Instagram is I'm going to switch the camera back to me, and I'm going to stop my share here, and I'm going to jump over to another screen here. to show you the what I wanted to share. And that is 538 is a great polling average, and I want to. They are actually happen to be spot on, or pretty spot on, relatively speaking, for the November presidential election. And I want to show that now because I think it's important. And that they, as I said, were pretty accurate. So without further ado, let's take a look at this. This is right now showing you what they're saying for their polls, and they do a lot of different analysis. And right now, the first one here on top is the race against Senator David Perdue against Democrat Jon Ossoff. Jon Ossoff with a 1.8 lead right now over in the polls. This is not the actual results as they come in. I want to be clear on that. This is the polls right now. These are not the actual results as they're lively coming in. This is this is the prediction. And again, this prediction from 538 has, relatively speaking, been spot on. They were pretty accurate when it came down to the November election. Now, further down here, we look at the Georgia. We look here at the race between Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler. Kelly Loeffler being the Republican incumbent, and again, a similar situation here where Raphael Warnock, is up by 2.1 points in this poll. Again, it's too early to really give you results. So this is something we want to show you. And then I want to show you, these are all of the runoff polls that we have. And for the majority of these polls, and these are the majority of the polls that are looked at, these polls do show in a mix, but more so than not with the two Democrats either leading by a significant margin. There are a couple of polls out there that have the Republican leading, more on the end of Kelly Loeffler leading. There isn't too many with David. Actually, there isn't one poll out here. I'm sorry, there are a couple of polls here. I take that back. The same polls that have Kelly Loeffler leading John Perdue is Kelly Loeffler is leading, has these poll numbers in some areas. And again, this goes all the way back this is the latest poll, and goes all the way back to November 8th and 9th, right after the general election in November. So the numbers at that point were really neck and neck. And then as this alleged voter fraud stuff started up and heated up with President Trump, it really gave way to these Democrats leading in the polls here. And that continued to offset because people, from what's being seen is in Georgia, especially Republicans are worried about this voter fraud and saying, what's the point in voting if the vote really doesn't count? And that's a lot what appears to be seen. I want to remind our viewers, if you are just tuning in, specifically to our viewers that are here with us on Instagram, this is right now the only platform I'm going to be able to view live. So if you would like to interact with us, feel free to do so. As again, I will be able to see your comments here live on Instagram. However, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube at this time, unfortunately, I will not be able to see your comments. I will try to switch over on my computer from time to time. But if you would like to comment something or mention something, feel free to write it here on Instagram, as that is the best bet. Now, I want to turn here, and I'm going to show my screen again in a minute to show you. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Road to 270 to win. I'm not sure why there it is. Okay, so let me pull up the Senate race, and I'm going to pull in Georgia here. Oops. That's not what I wanted. All right, so I'm going to show you right now the results as they are currently coming in. And again, I want to be clear on this, that these results are still early results. We know that there were roughly about 3 million early votes. So what you're about to see right now and what we're seeing is what is already in so far. We obviously need more numbers to come in, and that's what we're so far seeing here. So they're coming in relatively quickly, which is a great thing, but it's still too early to give you an exact sense on what exactly where things are standing with this race. So without further ado here, let's take a look here at this. This is from 270towin.com. I'm going to share my screen here on Instagram here as well, so you can see my screen here. And this is to give you the idea. This is as of right now. This is as of 8:24. So this is as of just about a minute ago. These results came in. And you can see John Ossoff in the race with Ossoff and Perdue. John Ossoff leads with 959,749 votes to David Perdue's 750,767 votes. That's a wide margin at the moment. That's with 40% of the vote in right now. Again, it's still too early to call because there are a lot of votes that need to be counted. Moving down the line here, again, same thing with about 40% of the vote in. Raphael Warnock leads at night with 965,168 votes to Kelly Loeffler's 743,901 votes. So again, we're looking at 40% of the voted right now, but at the same time right now, oops, I don't know what, no, sorry, I don't know what. There we go. I want to go back to me. At this time, it's just too early to examine this. I'm going to refresh my screen here so we can see if there is any further data that has come in. And no, actually, I take that back. Yes. So again, we're seeing the continuing trend. This is now with 42% of the vote in. And again, I'm just showing this to you. And we're now over 1 million votes. We're well over. We're getting more and more votes coming in, but again, the numbers are continuing to show the same thing. The Democrats on both seats are continuing to hold their leads, which is an impressively great thing to see. Again, John Ossoff now with 995,000. Now, it just actually went up again as I'm literally talking to you. That's pretty impressive. 995,593 to David Perdue, the incumbent's 795,480. Again, that's with 1,791,073 votes. There are 3 million early votes out there, folks. So we do have a little ways to go before we can actually call. Now, and I'm going to make my own prediction here in a minute from the data that I've been seeing, and I'll get into that. And again, I just want to show this here. Oh, we just got another up. As I'm literally talking to you, these numbers are being updated by the minute. So this is now being updated as of 8:26, and it is 8:28. Let me just see if there's another update here. 8:28. Okay, so we actually have an update right now here on the minute. That's how amazing this is. And again, you can see the numbers continuing to stay steady here for the Democrats on both races. That's something we're really going to have to closely watch. If these numbers continue to hold and we get past the 50% margin, I think once we get to 60% of the vote and we see this wide margin continue, then it's going to be safer. But we have to wait till at least half the vote is in. So once we get to at least half the vote, if not more than half the vote, then we can probably be a little bit more precise. Now I'm going to jump back to me for a few minutes to talk to you. And I'm going to give my thoughts on these two Senate seats and what we're seeing right now, and from the data that I've looked at over the past couple of days, to say the least. And right now, from what we're seeing, I think at the early indications, if we're to make it with Cultural Connections, and this is independent from any organization, with Cultural Connections, our own prediction here shows that, and this is again not any bias or anything, but is to show that both Democrats, John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock, are in our predictions to win these two Senate seats. And we say this based off of a couple of pieces of information. The first piece of information is that these candidates, given the allegations of voter fraud that is going on right now in this country with the presidential election, with what President Trump is doing, it very much hurt the Republican Party in Georgia to come out to vote. What we've seen a lot of, and what's been reported, is that a lot of Republicans are worried about whether or not their vote will really count. And again, that really comes down to the president's fault for inciting this voter fraud. And to date, there has been no evidence of any voter fraud to this point. We have seen the Supreme Court completely, which is packed with judges that President Trump himself appointed. We have seen his own attorney general who resigned and said there was no voter fraud. We have seen the director of the FBI say the same thing, that there is no voter fraud. We have seen the Republican Secretary of State say the same thing, that there is no voter fraud in the state. And yet President Trump continues to be on this tangent of voter fraud and not to concede the race. Did that hurt the Republican chances for taking these 2 Senate seats? Yes, it's very much likely that it did. And looking at what we're seeing so far with these numbers as they come in, it's evident so far. Now, again, what we're seeing here is still that it's too early to call these races. I can't emphasize that to you enough. It's way too early to call these races at this time. We plan to stay with you for as long as need be. We may jump back on here again. But again, as of right now, if we really are to examine these 2 races and what we're seeing as of right now, that is too early to call. I'm going to jump back to our results as they come in. And I believe personally what I'm showing you is the most accurate. Oops, that's not the right screen here. Sorry. The most accurate information. And I need to get that back. So bear with me for a minute. There we go. Okay, so bear with me for 1 second, and I'm going to show you where we are standing with these numbers, because they're coming in quickly. Don't get me wrong here. They are absolutely coming in quickly. If you're on Instagram, I'm going to jump back here so you can see the screen here too. And let's be, all right. I'm just going to have to hold, let's do it this way. Okay. So here we go. And I'm going to refresh here so we can see the latest numbers as they come in. This is now as of 8:32 p.m. And again, Jon Ossoff continuing to maintain that lead with now 44% of the vote in. Jon Ossoff leads with 1,021 votes, 849, to David Perdue's 847,512. In the other Senate race with Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler, Raphael Warnock leading with 1,027 votes, 712. Kelly Loeffler, 839,666. We're looking at now a 10-point lead now, basically, for Raphael Warnock. If this continues, and again, it's still early, we're almost now at 2 million votes in, and we know there are 3 million early votes. If this continues in this trend, then we may be able to call this race earlier. I expect, and I think it's possible by later tonight, that we may be able to call this race, but I know from, obviously, with what we know with the allegations of voter fraud out there, the major news organizations, CNN, Fox, the Associated Press, ABC News, NBC News, CBS News, are being so careful not to make any early calls. And I think that's obviously an understanding, because there's so much allegations of this, and we got to just make sure that what we're seeing is exactly accurate. So again, I'm just going to keep refreshing this, because as I can't emphasize enough, what we're looking at is information that is coming in relatively quickly. And I'm not sure why. Well, there we go. And again, as we're seeing here, the Democrat, Jon Ossoff, is now leading over 10 points, roughly about 10 points if we average it out, in Georgia in the Senate race against David Perdue, with 44% of the vote in now, and that's as of 8:32 p.m. It's 8:34. There is now 8:34. Okay, so again, we're starting again to see the same thing here. Again, the numbers continue to maintain the same. So if these numbers continue to stay where they are, then hold on, I'm trying to get out of this. There we go. If these numbers stay where they are, then and we continue to see the Democrat numbers rise, that we can make that projection for the Democrats. But again, at this point in time, it's too early for us to give that data at this time. It's something we really, really are closely going to have to watch. And right now, that's what's amazing here, again, watching this. And the more I see the results come in, and this is still as of 8:34. So again, we're looking at this really almost minute by minute, which is incredible. It's 8:35 now. These results are in as of 8:34. I'll check it again in approximately a minute. And you know what? For the heck of it, I'm going to just try some other news agency sources. So let me switch the camera back to me, and I'm going to tell you what we're seeing here. All right, so let's take a look at the live results. And again, this is a very similar situation here. And again, this is because we're looking at counties here where there's not a lot of votes in yet. And that has to do with it, I think. So we're watching, though, where a lot of the votes are coming in quickly. And again, as we look at this, and I want to talk about the exit polls that came out, and this is what we have seen here, and that in gender-wise, 46% of the vote went for John Ossoff and David Perdue race. There was there's the 46% male for John Ossoff, 54% for David Perdue. As for female, it's pretty much the exact opposite, actually. 54% for John Ossoff, 46% for David Perdue. White was 20 white in general white. Now we're talking about race. 29% of the white population in Georgia voted for John Ossoff. 71% was for according to exit polls voted for David Perdue. But the black community in Georgia, 93% of that voted for John Ossoff. 7% voted for David Perdue. Hispanic communities, we so far see is an overwhelming majority of 65% for John Ossoff, 35% for David Perdue. Asian community, same sort of thing. I mean, the only community that really turned out for the Republican Party here for the race between David Perdue and John Ossoff is the white party. That's it. I mean, these other communities, and we know in Georgia, the communities that are there, and that will also be a very big determination. Again, I mean, and then if we were really to divide this down, white men, white woman, you can see here that the majority of white men voted yes for David Perdue. Same thing with the white woman. Majority of white women voted for Perdue. Whereas again, then you look at the black men, 88% voted for John Ossoff. Same thing with the black woman, 96%. Same thing with the Latino vote. Same thing with the Latino men and Latino women and all other races, the similar thing. It's pretty impressive to say. If we look at the age group here, this is another thing. 18 to 29-year-olds voted for John Ossoff, and that's been a big part to this race here, watching this race to see who's voting for who. 18 to 29%. So that 18 to 29-year-olds, that's a big, huge prediction there on the exit polls for John Ossoff. Same thing with the age group of 30 to 44-year-olds. The 45 to 64-year-olds were almost evenly split between the two, but again, we see here in this case that David Perdue did pull ahead on that, and 65 or older, the senior population seems to go in the direction of the Republican candidate David Perdue. If we look at age specifically, this is age. This is interesting. What age group are you? So again, that's similar to what I just said. What best describes your education? So never attended college. We see that 58% of the voters for the David Perdue, John Ossoff race, which again, particularly is what I'm talking about, voted for David Perdue. If you attended college, again, that's roughly those are and got but received no degree. It's split right, splickety split in the middle. Associate's degree, again, split in the middle. The bachelor's degree candidates, there's more on that end. It just edges over a little bit for John Ossoff, and an advanced degree such as a JD, MBA, MD, PhD, etc., is more for John Ossoff as well. If we look at education as a college graduate or a non-college degree, college graduates are more likely to vote, it seems, for John Ossoff. So that's a big thing here, and again. And I think that's the interesting thing that we're seeing here with these exit polls that we're looking at. And again, as I go further down here, I'm not seeing because we're only seeing the other. I'm going to jump over here to the other race, the race with Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock. And again, we're seeing a continuation of the same thing here with these numbers as they come in. I want to talk about the exit polls. And again, we're seeing the same thing here, where actually in this case, the male and female voting scheme here in Georgia was really down the middle for male votes for Reverend Raphael Warnock. Female, again, same thing as it was with John Ossoff, overwhelmingly for the most part for John Ossoff. White men voted for the white population, was for Kelly Loeffler. Black overtook the Democratic population there for Warnock. Hispanic, same thing. Asian, same thing. Other roughly about the same thing. And again, white, as I said, was the overall the overall was for the Republican Party. Non-white was for the Democratic Party. Now, if we break this down to white men, again, same thing. A big population there. White men, white women voted for Kelly Loeffler. Black men, again, black women, same thing for the Democrats. Latino men, same thing for the Democrats. All other races, pretty much similar thing. As I continue down here, we look at age groups. Same thing, really, as the other Democratic race, as the other race for Senate. Whereas most age groups, exception for 65 or older, went for the Democrat. As we look at the age groups, for the most part, it's even. I'm sorry, it's for the Democrat Party. Exception again in those areas for 45-year-olds and over and 65 and older. Those areas are roughly for the Republican Party. Now, what best describes your education? Again, this is a little bit closer to never attended college. So around 42% said they never attended college and they voted for the Democrat. 58% said they voted for the Republican. So again, this is stuff to continue to watch here. And I want to go back to the numbers as they do come in. Again, these two races are too close to call, but we're now at 49% of the vote in. As we watch these numbers come in, and we're going to continue to watch these numbers come in, and as we watch that, that's what's going to be a huge thing here to see. And right now, again, with 49% of the vote in the race between Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler, right now, Raphael Warnock continues to lead. So that's a continuation here. Let's go back to the other Senate runoff race, and that's between John Ossoff and David Perdue. And again, I mean, we're looking at the same thing with 2,191,773 votes left. John Ossoff is leading with 1,121,359 votes. It's still too early to call, but these numbers continue to go in the favor of the Democrat, and that is amazingly to watch. We do have a lot of areas where there is no votes in just yet, and that's what we're waiting on. But some of these are obviously very small counties, which is why we don't have those results in yet. The bigger counties, which are more important, have mostly come in, and we're going to but those are not fully in, but we're going to keep watching them very, very closely at the moment. I also want to jump back to my 270 to win, and I'm going to share that again on screen here to show you the exact race numbers that we're seeing, because these, I think, to my understanding, these numbers actually come in before they reach the networks, before the network verifies it. So I think I would like to share this information with you, and I'm going to share my screen first here on Zoom for that, and then I will bring it on to the people watching on Instagram. So here we go. We are now looking again at these latest numbers. This is with half the vote in now, with 50% of the vote in, roughly over 2 million votes counted so far. And we know there are 3 million early votes. And of those 2 million votes so far, we are still seeing John Ossoff lead with 1,132,275 to David Perdue's 990,645. Raphael Warnock, same thing here on the other race here. The Democrat leading with 1,138,168 votes to Kelly Loeffler's 982,011 votes. Again, this is something to say that with now almost half the vote in, with 50% of the vote in, and over 2 million votes. And again, I want to reiterate here from what I keep saying, and that is that there is 3 million early votes that need to be counted. So, and again, we're watching these numbers come in live. This is now as of 8:44, and again, you're seeing here these numbers continue to go up for the Democrats. If you are a Democrat, this is what you want to see. It is still too early to say, but this is the numbers you wanted to see. This is what the result you wanted to see. Again, this is a pivotal moment because if the Democrats win this both seats tonight, they take control of the Senate. If they lose just one of these seats, the Republicans will remain in the majority in the Senate. So it's really that's what this comes down to, and it's what we're going to really be closely monitoring and really closely be watching as the evening goes on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stay on with you probably for another 5 or so minutes with watching these results as they come in. Then what I will do is I will come back on here live at about 9:30 p.m. We will stay on as long as need be for our coverage. We will come back on most likely. I think what we're going to do from here is come only live on Instagram after this. So if you're watching this on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, go over to Instagram and go to Cultural Connections 29 on Instagram. Follow us over there, and we will have the latest information on the election, on this runoff election over on Instagram for you. So go do that. I also want to remind our viewers that missed at the top of the hour that are we expected to know the results tonight? Very good question. I think it's very likely that we will because of the fact that we're seeing these results come in so quickly. I think it's very possible. Will we see a result? Will we see a projection tonight? I don't know. Maybe I'd like to say so because we are seeing this is not like the presidential election where we had to wait for state by state by state to come in. So I think it's really a crucial thing here to see what happens next from here. And I think right now what we're watching is that these numbers continue to go up with the Democrats. Assuming we see this and assuming we get past that 3 million vote threshold for early voting, then we may be able to have a better sense on where this race is headed. So that's still another million votes, which could change this election. Either way, it did get a little bit closer just now with David Perdue crossing the million threshold, but still not nearly as close as he needs to be to take over the area with John Ossoff. And again, same thing with Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock. Kelly Loeffler also now over that million vote threshold, but not nearly enough to where she needs to be at this time. And again, we're looking at something with 52% of the vote in with over 2 million votes now counted. And this is as of 8:48. Both are as of 8:48. And so we're watching. That's as of right now, literally as of right now. And these are live results as they're coming in. And yes, I agree with that comment there. I think the big crucial thing is to say is how long till we can actually project. It's hard for me to give an answer. Like I said at the top of the answer, and that's where my head is. At the top of the hour, I said that with these results are coming in relatively quickly. It is going to be pivotal to see how these results continue. If we can cross the 3 million threshold, which we're coming very close to doing soon, I think in my own prediction, and again, this is my own analysis here, that we'll have a better sense of where this race is actually going. So we're going to have to watch that very, very closely. So definitely keep that in mind. If you are trying to understand what we can expect from this race tonight, that's what we know. And that's what that's our latest thoughts right now. And it's a very iffy thing. But again, as of right now, with the votes that we're seeing counted, and again, I'm going to this is auto refreshing now with 52.3% of the vote in. I think if we can, and I know I said before 50% of the vote, but I think if we can cross 60 or 70% of the vote and we still see these numbers holding the way they are, then I think there's a very strong, encouraging sign that we will actually see the results. We will see these results turn out the way we expect, and that we will see results by the end of the night tonight. I really do have that sense of thinking right now, but again, that's really going to be dependent on exactly what happens, and I can't emphasize that enough because it's just too early to say. Before I go off on this, I do want to go over to our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube platform. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can do this, and to our users here on the Instagram, bear with me because I just want to see if anyone has comments. And okay, I'm not seeing our live though, which is sort of concerning. If you are watching on Facebook, I don't know why my live is not appearing. Okay, why isn't my live reported? Shows that I am live. Okay, we're gonna do this another way. Let's check Twitter. I'm a little concerned because I don't know that we're live on the other platforms, and then we might have just been talking to you guys here on Instagram. Okay, so we are live here on Instagram. That does make me relieved to know that we are live here on Instagram. And very good. Okay, we are live here on Instagram. Let's go to YouTube. And on a minute. Hold on. Folks, we'll be with you back here in just a moment. I want to make sure that our live is live, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, we appear to be live here. Good. Okay, so we are live here on YouTube as well. Okay, so that is excellent. I am relieved to see that information. So that is excellent. So again, just to recap here, and if you are watching on YouTube right now and you would like to comment or anything, please feel free, as I am watching the YouTube feed here on the computer which is a little off because it's a delay on the computer. So it's a little odd that I'm doing this, but I just want to be here in case you have questions. Please feel free to comment on them live here, and I will definitely do my best to give you an answer. And again, is what we're seeing here is it is still too early to call these races here in Georgia, but from what we're seeing here is the Democrats are leading both races at this time. So what I'm going to do, because we really don't have any further information, I'm going to stop this live video for now. I am going to come back on here live around 9:15, 9:30 with another update. So if you tune in again, and that will only be here to most likely Instagram. If it feels like it needs to, we will come back on here live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. But most likely it will be just Instagram. But definitely you'll know one way or another because I'll definitely make it noted beforehand. And of course, if there's any breaking updates, we'll come on Instagram directly because I can get live there very quickly. So I want to thank everyone for watching our complete coverage here of the Georgia Senate runoff election. Stay with Cultural Connections for complete up-to-date information on this Georgia Senate runoff race. And we hope that if you will continue to join us for continuing coverage. And if you have questions, please feel free to comment below, and we will see you at around 9:15, 9:30 for our next coverage of the Cultural Connections Georgia Senate runoff race election update. For Cultural Connections, I'm Brian Ives.
You've been watching the Cultural Connections podcast, Georgia Senate Runoff Election Special. For continuing coverage, stay with Cultural Connections for the most up-to-date information on this historic election.
Well, perhaps Senator Perdue would have been able to respond properly to the COVID-19 pandemic.
But the most insidious thing that Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden are trying to perpetrate.
Are you ready to show America that Georgia's a red state?
And so vote Georgia like your life depends on it.